Welcome to Distracted, the podcast with Angela Lockwood, the place where you will find practical brain-boosting strategies, expert insights, and real-life stories to help busy brains thrive in the age of distraction. Let's go. Welcome to Distracted. I'm Angela Lockwood. I'm so glad that you could join me today because we are going to look at a really simple strategy that can help you find greater focus in your day. Now, one of the things that I often hear people say is that they have this never-ending to-do list. So they have so many tasks on their list that they're trying to work through that either first thing in the morning, they look at their list and they feel so completely overwhelmed. Or what they do is they do the right thing, they plan the night before, and what they do is they can't sleep because they're thinking about all of the tasks that they have facing them for the next day. And I'm sure, like, if you're listening to a podcast called Distracted, you are like me and you've read so many different books on time productivity, how to, shape your day, how to time block, how to do all of these different strategies just to find one that works for you. And you should, right? There are so many fantastic ways that we can help manage our attention. There are so many ways we can look at how to better manage our time, how to fit more in, or how to create more space. Like, when you think about it, it can become really overwhelming trying to find the right strategy for you when it comes to helping you find more time, more energy, and more focus. So today we're going to go really old school. We're going to pull back everything. And we are going to go to one strategy that I know time and time again has been embraced and used across many different industries, has been used with kids, has been used with high schoolers, has been used with adults, and has been used in project management meetings, strategy meetings. I have seen these things used in every different environment, every different way that you could possibly imagine. Now, you've already seen the topic, so I know you've seen the episode title for today, but we're talking about the sticky note, the simplicity of the sticky note. Now, some people might call them a post-it note, but let's just call them a sticky note. They're a little tiny, they started out as a little square, but now they've taken the form of many different shapes. But we'll go back to the old school square. Now, I know people have talked about the sticky note creation in so many different ways, but did you know that this was invented by complete accident? So the sticky notes were invented back in the 1970s by Art Fry. That's who they were originally attributed to. And what he was doing was they were using a weak adhesive. So they were trying to develop this weak adhesive. And what he wanted to do was try to bookmark pages in a choir book, apparently. This is what the story is, without damaging them. So he didn't want to sort of turn down the corners of the book or mark anything in the book, didn't want to write in his choir book. So he was looking for a way that he could bookmark different parts in his choir book that didn't, damage the book. And so when he was at 3M, there was an adhesive sticky element that they were making. And what he did is he put these two things together, a piece of paper and the sticky adhesive. And what he came up with later was the sticky note or the post-it note, however you want to call it. And the thing I love about this story, now look, I don't know if it's completely accurate. You hear so many different versions of this story, but what I do love is this simple tool that has been used in so many different ways was born out of a problem-solving moment. So it was this really simple invention that was created because somebody had a need and they wanted to see if they could find a solution to it. And of course they did. And this sticky note or post-it note has had the greatest impact in productivity, in how we work for many, many years. Now, I think some people really underestimate the value of the sticky note. I know I sort of go in waves with it. Right now, clearly I'm in the sticky note camp. I am loving everything about sticky notes. And I can remember way back when I was going through a lot of speaker training. So how to get my ideas out and really clearly distill them in a way that was captivating for the audience. And it was under the guidance of the amazing Matt Church through the Thought Leaders community that he used to use and recommend to us this use of the sticky note to help us really distill complex ideas into very simple, structured, focused ideas. And I can remember at the time I bought piles and piles and piles of these little bundles of sticky notes. And every time I had an idea, I'd write it down, I'd stick it on. And then what I could do is I could move it around. I could take it off a piece of paper and move it into a different structure. Now, while I'm sharing some of these ways that I've used it, I want you to think about how could I apply the simplicity of a sticky note into my own life? It might be through projects. So if you've got a very long, complicated project, rather than feeling overwhelmed in all the steps, can you pull back the idea and put it down into like little bite-sized chunks and just pop them on a sticky note? Or it might be that you have a bigger goal that you're trying to work towards. And rather than having the goal as, just a sentence with no tangible steps, or having a really big, multi-stepped, complicated process, can you pull that all back into having one step per sticky note? So I know that when I was doing that speaker training, when we were talking about distilling ideas down, it was really quite remarkable when I think about it that I could come up with a concept that was, maybe a presentation that I was doing that was over the course of an entire day. So it would be more of a workshop. And it could be sort of 6, 7 hour delivery that I was doing. But I could take exactly that same theme and take it down to a half day workshop. I could take it down to a 1 hour presentation. I could even put it down into a 20-minute keynote. And the way that I would do that was I would have these sticky notes all over a wall that were on butcher's paper. Easier, they don't fall off quite as easy on butcher's paper than what they do on paint. But what I could do is I could move my ideas around and be really tangible, have a very tangible process, and get these ideas out of my head, literally onto paper. And then what I could do is I could shift these sticky notes around so that I could see where flow would fit better. So where the presentation or the keynote or the workshop would flow better. Now, I've also seen the sticky note also, I guess, used in strategic planning events. So I've been a facilitator in a strategic planning workshop, and everyone's talking lots of big words, lots of big visions, lots of action steps. And what I found was people get lost really easily in a lot of information. They get quite overwhelmed and they aren't really clear at the end of a workshop or a strategic planning meeting about what the next step actions are. So the way I use sticky notes in these is I take them out, I have them all over the desk, and I get people to write down key ideas that really resonate with them while everybody's talking. And I get them to say, put down what they think the steps of the project are. And what I love about this is it gives, again, something extremely tangible for people to feel. They write on it. It distills the overwhelm into one key focus, and it allows people to move their ideas around if, the first attempt isn't quite right or doesn't flow. What it does is it allows them to move it around very easily without being 100% committed to something being stuck on a piece of paper, right? So what I love, let's just take a step back about these sticky notes. Now, the simplicity of their design is beautiful, but what they allow us to do more is they're perfect for summarizing our thoughts. If we have big ideas, they're also great to summarize them. And like I said a couple of times now, really complex information. And what these little guys do is they force you to be really concise. They help you to sort of transform these big ideas into manageable, digestible pieces. So you think about it. If you were to have one big piece of paper that had all the information on it versus, say, 10 different sticky notes that really bites that project down, what do you think would be more successful in being able to be followed? Of course, it's the sticky note. And if I go back, years and years ago when I went through university, after I sustained a head injury when I was 17 in my final year of school, for those of you that know this story, is I had to really teach my brain how to work again. My brain was very fatigued. I had a depressed fracture of the skull. My brain would tire very quickly, and I would find it hard to retain the memory of what the lecturer was talking about. And so I was that person in lectures that had different colored highlighters, and I would write all over my textbook. I would have a code or I would have a system that would help me remember things. And then what I would also do after that lecture is I would get my sticky note piles in their different colors, and I would write down the key points. So it may not just be one or two words. It might be that we were talking about neuroanatomy, and I'd put just neuroanatomy on top of the sticky note, and I'd just write down 3 or 4 points underneath it, or even sometimes one, just to help me remember and help me to anchor my thinking to that idea. So, even right back when I was at university, sticky notes were a really big deal for me, and they helped me to distill those ideas. Now, for those of you that are visual learners too, sticky notes are a really great thing to help you. They help us to basically to better remember and better to recall things when they're visual if you're a visual learner. And what they can do is they can help us bring, these abstract thoughts into something that is quite tangible, but also in a visual way. So it may not be a word that you write down. It might be just a small picture or a model that you put on it. It might have been like a Venn diagram that somebody presented to you. You write that Venn diagram down or draw that Venn diagram down on a sticky note. And what happens then is you can recall that. They're like flashcards almost, if you think about it that way. And flashcards are, of course, another great way of doing this, but they're not quite as visually appealing as what the good old sticky note is. Um, and also, I guess, with sticky notes too, they're a really good summary tool. So, yes, it's great at distilling ideas down, but what it also can do is it can help you summarize things really clearly. Because what it does is it helps you to put almost like one core idea or a central idea um, onto that little sticky note. And again, what you can do is if it's got one core idea, but you have a project where or a concept where you've got 10 different ideas, then what you can do is you can also move it around and prioritize it in a way that helps you remember it. Okay, so who would have thought, right? The old sticky note, these beautiful little pieces of paper with sticky stuff on it can help us so well. But let's go into some other great reasons why and how I use them as well. And one of the big ones, project planning. Now, I have written 3 books now, and sticky notes were a really core tool for me in in developing the ideas for the book. Because can you imagine you've been signed up by a publisher to write a 50,000 word book? Now, you could be standing there going, oh my goodness, there is no way I could ever write a 50,000 word book. And that's usually the standard sort of nonfiction book if you look at a 50,000 word book. But um, if you think about the overwhelm of writing a book, that's a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of energy, but also a lot of brain space. And for me, I could not think about the fact that I would write 50,000 words. It felt too much. It felt too overwhelming. But what I did is I spent some time, and yes, there were great ways, and lots of people have their own strategies of working through this. But writing a chapter outline, coming up. Could you imagine having, say, 10 chapters? Let's use just that as an example. 10 chapters, and you put the chapter theme on a sticky note, pop it on the wall. I always like putting sticky notes up vertically. There is something visually that our brain does that when things are vertical rather than flat. So if you need to take a step back from ideas, see bigger picture, almost zoom out, having any of your thoughts and ideas on a wall allows you to do that. Just like when you're looking at a painting in a say an art gallery. That's why they don't have them all laying down on tables, right? Because when they're up on a wall, visually you will see things differently, but it also allows you to take a step back and take in all the elements of it. So when it comes to writing my books, what I would do is I would write a chapter theme on a sticky note, and it would be one color. So all the chapter themes would have a certain color of sticky note. And then what I would do is I would put the themes under that chapter in a different color underneath it. So it was just these vertical strips of sticky notes of different colors. So the chapter titles or chapter themes would be, say, green, and then underneath it, all of the ideas would be yellow. Now, again, what that allowed me to do in writing the book is I could see where things didn't fit. I could go, no, actually, that theme shouldn't sit there. It should be over under this chapter. And then later on, when I come back to it and I re-look at it again, I go, you know what? No, I was right the first time. And rather than scrapping everything and ripping everything up, all I do is I just take the sticky note off and I pop it over on the other column in the other chapter. So it's really easy, right? There's no stress. There's no rubbing anything out. There's no throwing things away. There's no stressing out. It's a really simple process. So having these, sticky notes for your ideas on a wall, or whether or not you're in a planning meeting or a strategic planning meeting, that's why it's really great to have it on butcher paper on the walls or on a whiteboard where people can take a step back and take it in. Because what it does in these beautiful little sticky notes is that's a really great way for us to also visually map how things are going to play out. So it doesn't just have to be through words, it could also be through timelines as well, or it could even be financial as well. It could be also just working out different workflows in dates. So it just allows us to be able to think of it creatively. Literally doesn't matter what you put on it, as long as they are digesting, making things a lot smaller and a lot easier for you to digest, rather than being stuck in an overwhelming project. Okay. Simplicity of sticky note. Who would have thought, right? So maybe you've used these yourself. You're probably going, I have used a sticky note so many times, but who would have thought I could have done it this many ways? But really having the sticky notes, what I love most is that it is such a great focus tool. All right. So, because what it does, you can't have a whole list of things on a sticky note. Well, I guess you could, but it's tiny and it just doesn't feel right. If you were to have 10 things on a sticky note, it's like you can't really see it anyway. It's too small. Zoom out again and just write maybe one critical task or two or three at the most that you need to focus on. Now, when I'm feeling particularly overwhelmed, I'll just grab three sticky notes. I'll write one, two, and three, the three main priorities for that day. And they're my three things I need to do. It doesn't have to be, productivity, knowing what you're focusing on for the day doesn't have to be complicated. I really think too often we overcomplicate managing our time and managing our focus, but also just we almost waste time trying to find the right productive tool and trying to be productive. So if you just look at a sticky note as a really simple way, right? 1, 2, 3, first one done, rip it off, throw it in the bin. Number 2, rip it off, throw it in the bin. Number 3, rip it off, and it's time for you to relax. But another way too, it doesn't even just have to be the physical things. I know I use this for a couple of key ideas on my computer desktop. So if you use a Mac, there are stickies, it's called, and you can activate stickies, and they're literally sticky notes on your screen. And I really love that because I have my 3 key ideas just to keep me focused on the content that I create and what I speak about. But I also have on another sticky note all the links to things so that I can really quickly flick them off to people so that I don't have to be looking through all of these different programs and wasting time and going down the rabbit hole. All right. So yeah, stickies, that's on a Mac. So hopefully that is something that's useful for you. So, how do you action these sticky notes? Because that is one thing. I don't know about you, but I do create systems sometimes because it makes me feel like I'm organized, but it also helps me to feel a little bit in control. It's actually one of my stress indicators that if I know that I am setting up a new system or I'm tidying a cupboard or I'm getting, writing things down, I know that often I'm either procrastinating on something I don't want to do or don't understand. I feel overwhelmed by something, or my brain has just hit its threshold that it needs to stop thinking and it just needs to do something really light and less cognitively demanding. So let's look at how we action them so that we don't just get stuck in the creation. So you can organize them by priority. And what I mean by the priority is that you can categorize them by color. So, luckily now they're all beautiful and different. I always use the little square ones, but sticky notes, but there are rectangle ones. There are little label colored ones as well, like a little flag. There's so many different types now, but I just like to go old school with the square. But you can use them to help you prioritize, and you can have colors that match to urgent if you like, red for urgent, green for important, and then maybe blue for low priority. It's totally up to you, whatever works. They're also really good to use for time blocking as well. And time blocking I'm a really big fan of it. Basically, it's saying between this time and that time, I am doing this particular task. Now, it does take a little bit of willpower, and it does take a bit of persistence, making sure that you are actually staying focused during that time. But time blocking for me might be something like recording my podcast. I do between this time, and that's how many episodes that I will get done. So what the little sticky notes can do is it can help you understand what is the goal of that during that period of time. And I know some people use in their calendar, they might use color coding for different time blocking, but that's another sort of segment, another episode we'll talk about. But each of those sticky notes can correspond to a time in your day that you've blocked out. All right, so it can help you to prioritize, it can help you with time blocking. It can also help you to review things and then get rid of them, so discard them. So what's important when you're actioning the sticky notes is that you don't let them just pile up. I know there's so many stock photography photos where you see someone with their head on the desk and all these sticky notes coming everywhere, or they've got a wall full of sticky notes and they've got ones on their forehead and all that. There's probably a good reason there's so many of those stock photos. It's because there's one thing to have the sticky note, but you need to action it and get rid of it. So literally throw it in the bin, rip it up, get rid of it. Don't let them just pile up, because sometimes they won't be relevant anymore. Okay, so don't have sticky notes all over your desk, all over your wall if they are serving no purpose any longer. Okay. A really great tool that I've seen, I don't use this personally, but I have seen clients and I have implemented it with clients, is a sticky note board. So just like you have a cork board or you have a whiteboard, it's a dedicated space for your sticky notes. So it could be something like on a wall, a board, or like I said, or it could actually even be in a journal. I know that some people like to have, a lot of people still use a paper diary. Yes, they do. And the sticky notes might help you. Just stick it on a piece of paper, and then when it's done, you can pull it off and you can throw it in the bin. So actioning your sticky notes is just as important as setting them up. Okay, don't add to your overwhelm, which it sort of defeats the purpose of having them. Don't add to the overwhelm of having a system that you never clear. And sticky notes can be really, really good to help you stay focused if you don't let them take over. So I'm just looking at my sort of use of sticky notes in my office right now. And one of the places I have sticky notes, I have 3 sticky notes that sit around my second screen. And it has 3 really cool messages that I always want to make sure that I'm delivering in my podcast, when I'm speaking, when I'm doing any masterclasses. They're 3 really cool messages. So what that does is, it doesn't matter what I'm doing on my computer, whether I'm writing, whether I'm speaking or presenting, I have those 3 core messages front and center. And it's like a visual prompt to remind me what is my important focus. So for you, they could be your 3 top priorities for the day, or it could be the 3 areas of your business that you're wanting to focus on, whatever it is that you want to focus on. So I'm hoping that today has been really useful for you. This episode is really a very practical way to help you find greater focus in your day through the use of a tool that you have so readily available to you. As I said earlier, one of the things that I often notice when people are looking at productivity, or they're looking at wanting strategies to help them find focus better, whether it be managing time, managing tasks, often we overcomplicate it. Often we, come up with systems that so overcomplicate things that we either get overwhelmed with setting it up, we don't use it at all, or it takes us longer to try to find where it is that we put things. When if we just have something as simple as a sticky note just front and center, it really can be that easy. Now, those other systems are really important as well. And I do have very beautifully designed systems in my business to help automation, to help with workflow, to help with client management, a whole range of things. But ultimately, when I take a step back from all of that, my sticky notes are the things that are like visual prompts for me to help me either distill an idea or to remind me of what's important. So, hopefully, that's been really helpful for you today. If this has been helpful, please let me know. Head on over to any of my social media accounts, Angela Lockwood underscore at Instagram or at Angela Lockwood number 6 at LinkedIn. There's a whole range of places you can find me, but you can head over to angelalockwood.com.au where every way to find me is on there. If you are a parent or an educator listening to this and you've heard something about the Learning Bridge, the Learning Bridge is a membership I've designed to help you better understand busy brained kids. So, as a parent, it might be just finding better ways to parent in the age of distraction. If you're an educator, it might be around creating inclusive classrooms for the changing learning needs of kids. Then please head on over to angelalockwood.com.au/the learning bridge, and you'll find all the information there about this amazing membership that I'm so proud to have created. Huge amounts of really positive feedback. It has just recently started, so please jump on over and be a part of this very beautifully growing and thriving community of parents and educators. If you haven't subscribed yet to the podcast here on Distracted, please head on over to wherever you listen to this podcast, hit subscribe, and let people know that you love this episode and this podcast. But everyone, thanks so much. I hope you love the sticky note strategy. If there's any other strategies you'd love to know more about, then please let me know. But everyone, I'm Angela Lockwood, and I wish you all the very best until we speak next time.